Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name is Doug Cunnington. In this interview, I talked to Marty McLeod, who's on the show here for the third time. This is very interesting because, number one, Marty is a student of Five Figure Niche Site, so it's cool to be able to brag on one of my students. Number two, Marty's like an awesome fixture in the Niche Site Project community, super helpful on the YouTube channel, Facebook groups. He's active in multiple Facebook groups, which is, way more than I am because I'm basically not active at all in any Facebook groups anymore, even my own. But the cool thing is Marty has hit $3,000 per month with his Amazon affiliate site. And it has not been without work. It's been a ton of work. And the first two episodes that Marty was on was sort of a similar interview style, although this one's a tad shorter because we're just hitting the updates. But the first time he was on, he hit his initial goal of $500 per month. A few months later, he hit $1,000 per month. That was another one of his milestones. And I think he had a goal set for $2,000 a month, but at the time we're recording this, he has blown past the $2,000 per month mark, and he's been doing about $3,000 per month for about 3 months, at least at the time that we recorded the interview. So if you want to hit Marty up, you could probably find him around in, like I said, different Facebook groups out there. You can probably find him out there on YouTube in the chat and comments and that sort of thing. Definitely check out the other episodes if you have not listened to them. And by the way, I think Marty's other two episodes are like 2 out of the 3 most popular downloaded episodes for the Doug.Show. And like I said, he's been on the YouTube channel some as well. So I'm going to stop rambling on and just send it over to the interview. And thanks a lot, Marty, for joining me and talking to me on the Doug.Show. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and I'm with my good buddy, Marty McLeod. How are you today?
I'm great, Doug. Appreciate it.
So we have a great success story interview because Marty's been on, I don't even remember how many times, at least 2, maybe 3 other times. And you hit, I think, $500 the first time and then $1,000. And I will let you say the recent milestone that you hit. So where are you at right now with earnings?
Yep, I'm very happy to say I'm at just over $3,000 a month.
Awesome. And is it a fluke? Did you just hit like $3,000 a month and like you've only done it once?
I think in March I was like close to 25, 26, I forget exactly. So it was traffic still growing. So it ended up after that, I actually hit it. And I didn't think I was going to do it, but it was a nice surprise.
Awesome. So it's been 3 months straight if I'm doing them.
3 months straight.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. I know you appreciate it because you've been in the trenches doing stuff the whole time. So
exactly.
For the people that haven't watched the other interviews, first, watch the other interviews, but can you give a little intro about yourself, Marty, and just your journey so far? So big question, but feel free to take your time and let us know what's up.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it to the bullet points, as they say. So originally, I had a couple years ago, I tried building a niche site on my own, and it was a flop. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to find keywords. I didn't understand competition, yada, yada, yada. Then I was a student of your 5-figure niche site course, and that helped me get a much better game plan. And I built my first site, and I've been working on it ever since. I actually have 2. However, like 95 or about 95% of the income comes from that main site, and it's still growing now. And I've just been consistently working on it ever since I started your course. And I'm as of this week, at 81 posts on that site.
Sweet. Amazing. So I appreciate you mentioning the course, but I know that you've learned from many people, and I will just give you, even early in the video, I'm going to give you a chance. You can spit out some other podcasts you'd like, other blogs, whatever. Who else did you learn from? Who influenced you along the way here?
Yeah, I also learned a little bit from Kyle Trouble. I learned from podcasts as well and articles from Human Proof Designs, Authority Hacker Guys, little bit from Niche Pursuits, Spencer Hawes. And I actually picked up a little bit from Johnny FD's Travel Like a Boss, which covers a wide range of things. But some people on there were actually affiliate marketers too. So, motivation as well. But the SEO stuff and stuff like that, I learned from you guys, you and the other guys like that,
Cool.
the nuts and bolts, if you will.
Right.
I think that covers a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm fans of a lot of the people that you mentioned too. And as I was coming up, I mean, we all learn from different sources. Like I said, I appreciate you mentioning the course, but hey, everybody, you can learn from all sorts of people. I mean, one of the reasons why I like talking to you, Marty, some of the other people in the course is you guys are really smart. You're smarter than me in many different ways, and I can learn from everyone. So I encourage everyone to take that approach as well. All right.
Yeah.
So I know people are wondering a lot of the details on the site and that sort of thing. So we're not going to reveal it or anything like that. But you mentioned like 80 posts or so. So can you talk about like the number of like keywords you had when you started and how long it took you to get to 80 posts? And are you adding a lot more content and just sort of the content and keyword area? Tell us about that.
Okay. So of course, in your course, we start off with a 10 post sprint, as you tell us to do, And as far as keywords, can you clarify that question about the keywords? Sorry.
Sure. Just did you start with like a bunch of keywords, like 4,000 or like 300 or like 15?
Oh, I'm sorry. Back then, I started with the list from that niche, which it was I forget, it's probably 50 or something. And of course, I have to evaluate what I can use. Ever since then, I've gotten better and better and better. I used to do a handful at a time, but now I've got more efficient, and I'm getting a list of a couple hundred at a time, and I go through them and sort through them and evaluate them. And then I move from there, And for me personally, I have not had the best luck with writers to this point, which is still an issue I'll have to figure out, of course. So I've been doing all the content myself, which is also, that's really hard work, and it's slowed me down because I average 2, maybe 3 posts a week on a good week. But at the same time, the things that I've learned have really paid off. They really have.
Gotcha. So you're publishing about 2 to 3 posts per week. Okay. And how long are those posts?
Oh gosh, they easily average 2,500 words minimum, because I've dug my heels in as far as quality goes. And when I optimize for more keywords, that ends up naturally, without any fluff, it ends up being a longer content. So for some of them, it's 3,000, 3,500. Yeah. It just kind of ends up, once I got better, it ended up kind of coming naturally, the length,
All right.
Yeah.
So you're putting out about 10,000 words a week. Is that what you're telling me?
That's probably about right. It really depends on if it's new material I have to learn, it slows down, and it could be 1.5 that I get done, or 2, but roughly about 2 is about right. Yeah. About 10, then between 6 and 10,000, words is probably about right. Plus the images take time too,
Okay. Well, what about images? Do you like just buy them from some content site or something like that? Or how do you get your images?
I've done a couple different things. Some things I do, there's some free stuff out there. And what I'll do is I create my own, generally speaking, and except for product images, I created a lot of stuff myself, and I'll take free stuff and I'll edit it and add it with something else, like my own text in a free editor like paint.net, and maybe use a plugin to help me improve the quality of the images. And I make my own clip art sometimes now, and I can edit an image and have it target whatever the topic is, and have a nice little image with some little clip art and some nice looking picture that I think people will like, and help just break up the text.
Sure,
that's one of the goals.
And if people want to see an example of this, Marty actually wrote a few posts for me over at Niche Site Project, and he had some of his beautiful art in there, which it looks good, because I don't do that stuff myself. I just Usually I'll grab like an image or something like that if it's relevant. I really lean heavily on like case studies so I could just put data on there because it's late. I mean, it's useful, but it's lazy.
Yeah, that's true.
So, okay. So you got pretty long content. You think high quality is pretty important for your particular niche, or would you say that's kind of across the board?
I feel like it's across the board, at least to some degree. I mean, I know that I go pretty far with mine, and that's benefited me, but not everyone can or will. I think that you should have at least a certain level, because I've seen so many niche sites out there that are just really bad, and it's very obvious they're stuffing it with fluff. And I feel like that's really harmful to reader or viewer interaction, because I feel like that's gonna burn you. You know, it's very easy to tell when something is really focused on delivering value to the reader and when it's not. And that is what I try to do. I try to do the latter. Will this help somebody? Is this what they're looking for? Will I answer the search query? Help them make the right purchase for them? That's exactly what I try to do.
Very good. Now, as far as like going back and like iterating on the content, improving areas that maybe you thought you did a really good job on, but maybe you left some stuff out. Yep. So do you go back and improve, iterate and everything?
Yeah, definitely. And that, especially not too long after, probably 6 months after the site started getting a little bit of trickle of traffic. When I went back and looked at how I originally did stuff, I thought, wow, that was bad. And I redid all of it. And I started off with in a better way. I changed to conversational style writing. But yes, periodically I do go back and have to check stuff. And it's inevitable, I think, when you're learning and you get better a little bit at a time, you go back and you think, only something 2 weeks ago, you would have done it that way anymore. And you say, oh, I can improve this. Why don't I go ahead and do that while I'm here? I do like to do that. Yes, to answer your question. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And do you have like a systematic way to approach that with 80 articles, different quality, different, time when you wrote them? How do you tackle that?
Well, like for example, right now I'm going back in and changing some relatively minor stuff. So in my Google Sheets, I've kept track of all my post URLs, yada, 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 dates, revision dates. I do it that way so I can check off what I have worked on and what I have not. And, if I need to add notes there, I can. I think that's some kind of organized way of knowing what you have, what you've done, and where you are if you need to go through the list. Something like that,
Okay.
That's what I like to do.
And then and obviously we're focusing a lot on content. I'm trying to think of all the questions that people have. So,
okay.
and things that I try to emphasize for people, but one of them is interlinking through a site. Yeah. So I expect you have interlinked some.
Yes.
Now, did you start at the very beginning and you've kept that up, or did you have to go back and like sort of rework it as you built the site out?
Yeah, I think it's natural that you may have to go back and rework it a bit, because one good reason, and when you were asking about going back and fixing posts, doing some updates, I feel like at some point it's inevitable that you're going to add some new posts that were relevant to stuff that's old and that you did not have back then. It makes a lot more sense to link to them now as opposed to what you did in the beginning. Actually, that happened recently. I had four new info posts, and they're all extremely relevant to each other. It's just the specifics were different. So I interlinked those, but they didn't all exist at the same time. So once all four were done, I went back and I updated all the other three, for example.
Gotcha.
Made sure I took advantage of that.
Okay.
That's exactly like that. That's just an example.
Okay. And that's perfect, because you don't know that you're going to publish stuff in the future. But then, there's probably really relevant stuff that you can link to, and then you get the SEO benefit from it. So now external links, some people are very nervous to quote, let their link juice, leak out into the world or whatever. There's a really weird way for me to ask that question, but do you add external links to like authority sites, other references, bigger sites, maybe competitors? Like, do you care, or what do you link to?
Generally, at this point in time, and I'm always looking, always try to learn and improve. But right now, what I do is typically I have a few links to a site. I have one to something like Wikipedia, one of the How Stuff Works sites. I usually like to check the authority and validate the site in Google's eyes, or something similar to that, and stuff like that. If I have a technical term, that's a great opportunity for me to link to that definition in Wikipedia. That's just exactly a perfect example of what I like to do. 2 to 3 times in a post, I do that. I've heard and I've read that that's a really good idea. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that is my practice right now.
Okay. And I don't have any real data, but I read something or heard something once that, like, wouldn't it be good if Google thought you were a hub of information and you're like sending people to other like good references? And I thought, yeah, that actually makes sense to me. I like it. When I land on a site and I want to do more information, or I want to find more information, and I can follow a link that's actually relevant, that's not like garbage. So I think that makes sense. Again, I mean, it goes back to what you mentioned before, like a visitor lands on your site and they have some problem. They're trying to get help from you somehow. And if you could help them get more information, well, that's perfect, right? So very good. Now, what about competitors? You ever link out to competitors?
Not competitors directly. I've done a few with people in somewhat related but not competing niches. I don't think I've done competitors yet, unless there might be a rare instance where I had a really good reason to do so for something that's a little bit harder to find for a definition or something like that. But generally, as a rule, I do not.
Okay. And I'll just throw in a tidbit here. I have done that, especially when I've found like the information useful, because again, in my head, I was like, well, I used them as a reference, so I may as well link to them. So that's one little tidbit. The other is I link to the manufacturer site, often to the manual, because that's kind of non-competitive, and it's like, well, that's good information. Basically, all PDFs for manuals are like available free on the website. Yeah. So I usually put 1 or 2 of those in a post if I can.
I do that, and I've noticed where keywords are actually people searching for manual download for XX product, and I'll actually have that available as a download. You can even put a little button in there, and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I have the text and everything,
Oh, so you're like you're getting traffic, and like people are looking for the manual and they're getting it from your site versus the manufacturer?
I'm not sure how much that's helped, but I try to take advantage of every little opportunity like that. And I also do that as second reason for doing that is when I'm given this information, I try to establish my post to somewhat authoritative, and I know what I'm talking about. And that adds to that from my perspective,
Yes, I agree. Cool. So any other details on like content that you think may be useful to share here?
Yeah, you need to make it easy for people to read. Conversational style English is ideal, and that includes using contractions. You're not writing academic style. When I started, I did it completely wrong, and I had to go back and fix it. Right. In a casual, friendly way. If you have data, make it clear. Use a simple, clear table that looks good on mobile, because I still see this problem a lot on mobile. A lot of people's tables are just horrible, and nobody wants to swipe over all the way over just to see it. So I always make sure that my tables look good on mobile. If it doesn't work one way, I'll figure out another way or break it apart or something.
Yep.
Use your H2s, H3s, organize your content, break it up, don't make it too long. If you're not using Yoast, find some way of getting writing suggestions to try to help break up sentences that are super long. The basic stuff about making stuff easy to read. I use images because I think that people find them appealing, especially if you're going to do that, use clear images that are the right size. Don't enlarge a teeny tiny fuzzy picture. That looks really bad, and it looks like you're not doing a very good job. Just try to come across as you're trying to help the reader as much as possible. And I at this point in time, I've learned I avoid saying "buy this now." Instead, I'll say something like, I use a more copyrightish style of saying, "It's great for these reasons. and here you can go check out why it's one of the best selling products in Amazon. And that'll be my link. That's a tip I picked up from Kyle Trouble. I kind of make it a casual way, segue into clicking on a link. And it seems to be working pretty well.
Very cool. Yeah, I when I see buttons, for example, like buttons, it's like buy now, like super aggressive stuff. It's a little too much, and I prefer, like you said, a little like you want people to want to go over there. You want them to be a little curious, and like you said, copywriting is a valuable skill to use, especially when you're trying to sell something and provide information without coming off like you're really pushing it. So.
Yeah, I do have one more small thing I could add to that. When you said you're talking about content, so I've noticed that some people have done things where they have the call to action at the top, but there's nothing at the bottom. But usually when people read and they evaluate something mentally before they click on it, you have a natural flow of here's the name, here's some pictures, here's some information, maybe your pros and cons, and then you have a call to action. And it's no coincidence that a lot of people who aren't getting sales are doing the opposite. They have it at the top, and a lot of times it's actually in a way that people don't even know they should click on that. So it doesn't make sense. Why would you click on something before you read about it? So a natural flow down to the call of action is more logical, and it seems to work well.
Nice. And to that point, I didn't ask you to pull any numbers ahead of time or anything like that, but like, do you remember your rough conversion rate as reported on Amazon?
Yeah, as reported on Amazon, it's around just a little bit over 10% on average. Yeah,
and that's pretty high. What do you attribute that to?
I'm sure a lot of it has to do with what I just mentioned. The things I just mentioned. The fact that I'm not trying the aggressive approach, which data shows that's not right. Instead of saying buy it now, I imply that here I give you the reasons why you should buy it, and if there's something should consider before to not buy it, but something else, I'll tell you why. And then I suggest that it'll be you should go have a look at it and consider it. That style of writing, I think, contributes a lot to it. Kurt Phillips of Convertico once said that your job should be to help make them make up their mind before they click on the link, so that when they end up at Amazon, they're more than likely going to go ahead and buy it. And that is what I try really hard to do. I think that has a lot to do with that.
Nice.
And also the user experience on my sites is good. So it's nice and clean. It looks like I know what I'm talking about. I believe so far, my hunch is that, and I suspect it's true, that if you give a good user experience and you come across as being an authority, people are more likely to trust you and to buy. I think that influences this, the mental sales aspect. That's my opinion.
Okay. And I will also, you didn't say this, but you're getting the right visitors on your site. Because even if you did all that stuff, if you get the wrong person on your site, not going to help. So it starts with getting the right person on there, and then like you nurture them all the way over to Amazon, and you're doing a great job. So cool. So we're going to hit a couple like faster questions here. Okay. So tools and themes and plugins, all the stuff that I basically don't think really matters, but I know people care about, so I'm going to ask it. Can you just list out some of the tools you like to use, the theme you're using, if you want to share it, some plugins that you feel are essential, or if you share my opinion, you could say that too.
Okay. I do. Okay. Well, one of the most important things that for the keyword research process is I personally use Ahrefs, but I know that that's not critical. So don't believe that you have to do that because I'm using it. I just like having a massive amount of data, which leads me to my next tool. I automate the all in title process. So I use a inexpensive tool from a guy site, American guy site named Scrapers and Bots. And it'll actually do the autocomplete scraping, but most of the time I just scrape all in title values and I export them, and I have my huge keyword list, and I put those together, and it helps me go through a ton of keywords in a short amount of time rather than manually having to do it. Of course, I mentioned the paint. The image editor I use is paint.net, and it's free. And I got a free plugin that helps me do more features that it was originally missing. And that it's actually pretty good to be free. It really is once you get the hang of it. Google Drawings I use sometimes. That's helped me for a lot of my stuff needs diagrams, and people love that stuff. And don't use MS Paint or something like that. Don't half-ass it. You can do great stuff in a free tool like Google Drawings. You can do other stuff too. It doesn't have to be technical stuff. That's helped me a lot because now I can copy them, tweak it, and then use a new version in another post and save myself that work and time. Let's see what else. Goodness.
All right. Well, you covered a lot. So you got keyword
yeah.
research, some of your graphic stuff. Do you write directly into WordPress or do you write somewhere else?
Yeah, personally, I'm still writing directly into WordPress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Back in the day, like WordPress didn't save things as you went. So like I would like type up 2,000 words and then like it wouldn't save and I lost it all.
Yeah.
So I still have that in my head, but now it saves it in the browser. So you're kind of free from that. So, okay. And I know, if you think of any other tools, feel free to mention. We didn't talk about link building, which I believe is an important thing. I know some people are like, link building is evil. You'll die if you link build, which, I mean, everyone's going to die. We got serious really quick here, but
sure.
but basically, yeah, we're talking about SEO tools, so we got to lighten it up a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
So now everyone's paying attention again. And I'm curious, have you done much link building? Because I believe it's very critical. However, I know a lot of people have been able to get by without doing any link building. So where are you at with your site?
I haven't done it in the last couple of months. I've been so focused, time limited. I kept trying to work on content and things like that, and fixing any problems that popped up. So I haven't done it in a while. In the past, I have, yeah.
Okay. And then what did you do when you were doing some link building?
Guest posts. I've gotten a few links from other guy sites to certain articles, and I've done other people the same favor as well. Let's see. I think those were the two biggest ones. Oh, the commenting originally when I started your course coming out when my site was brand new, I did quite a bit of commenting, blog commenting. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And did you find the blog commenting helpful at all? Because a lot of people are like, it's a total waste of time. And so what did you find?
It's hard. I don't have data to back it up, but I think that it did help some. Yeah. I think that in some cases I had posts where I was too ambitious with the keyword. It was just something I wasn't going to have. The level required for me to rank higher was steeper than I understood back then. But now things have gotten easier, and something like that would be more effective. Yeah.
Gotcha. And do you know like roughly how many guest posts that you got?
Yeah, I think it's still around. I think we're probably 30 or something.
Okay. And then, so you're doing well, right? You did some like guest posting, and I'm curious, like, are you ranking as high as you can for, quite a few posts? And the reason why I'm asking is a lot of times I see people don't reach like the potential and they're like, I'm just going to keep publishing more content. I'm not suggesting you're doing that, although I'm asking it in that way. But like, I do see people, they're like, well, the link building, I'm not sure if it worked, but I know the content worked. So I'm just going to stick with the content. So do you believe that you could rank higher and get more traffic, make more money if you did more link building?
Yeah, I do, definitely. And also improving the post versus my competitors, what's outranking me. I've actually just recently started tinkering with Page Optimizer Pro. I just haven't implemented changes yet. I was just doing something else. I actually was doing something not related to that to go through my posts and update some small stuff, and then I'll work on the next thing. I know the links. I do know that they still have value. I mean, the data is out there, the tests that have been done. So it's definitely something you can't ignore. It just makes too much sense that because the top three in the top 10, top three sites ranking gets so much of the traffic for a search term. It's worth your time to try to do it,
Yeah. Cool. And I think, I've been in the same boat where I've spent too much time on content. And then when I came back a few months later, like things were fine. I got more traffic from the new content that I posted, but I was like, man, if I would have just like split the effort, split the resources, maybe I would have had like just higher rankings in general, which, I mean, you can't do everything at once. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you do what you can. All right, cool. So not too much link building. You got about 30 guest posts, and I believe somewhere around like 20 or 30. Like if you have that many going to your domain and they're high quality, like that's enough to play ball. Like you're going to be able to compete. But I think probably if people get more links and you start getting more natural links because you're ranking higher, then like that's when things start to sort of take off on their own. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit before we kind of just riff a little bit here in a second, but what's your why? Like, I mean, you have a good job, like you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Like, what's your end game here?
For me personally, the dream to be able to be my own boss and live life on my own terms is, for a long time now, it's been my burning motivation because since years ago, I just had this, the American way of life. Well, it's not, we have lived a good life here, but there's compromises to everything. You're giving up your personal freedom and the possibilities of what you can do with yourself and your life. The scope of that is amazing. And I want to have that. That's why I'm doing it.
Awesome. Very cool. And like, was there any specific, like maybe person in your life or even a celebrity or some figure, maybe one of the bloggers you mentioned before, that sort of like influenced you and you're like, I want to do something like that?
There was a lot of them. I don't know the guy's actual name. He didn't use his real name. The first one was a guy who was living in Asia and he was working remotely in some kind of software field he never divulged. But he just had this amazing life. He could pick up and move where he wanted to go, and he didn't have to answer to anybody for the most part. But then as time went on, I've seen more and more people. Kyle Trouble is one of them. He owns a huge amount of affiliate sites, and he's doing really well, 6 figures a year. It's amazing to be able to live where you want to and write about it. But there's other people like in Johnny FT's that Travel Like a Boss. They were just these, not all were, but a lot of Americans, and they were just average people who were doing the same kind of stuff in one way or that one genre of income online or another. And people like that really inspired me a lot. It's fascinating because they weren't born with some kind of special magic that made them be able to do this. It's somebody who actually said, this is what I want. I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to make the effort. If I fail, I won't give up. I'll just keep going until I figure it out.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the formula, You got to want it and go for it.
Totally. Yeah.
And you're a good example as well, Doug. I mean, you're living life the way you want to, so it's cool.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I was going to say we're all just average, like normal jerks that you bump into on the street, or I'm driving. I'm never in a hurry. That's like the biggest luxury for me. I'm like almost never in a hurry. Yeah. Cause, the only time I'm late is like for stuff like this. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm like, Marty's waiting on me. I was on time today, mostly, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm like not in a hurry. So I literally drive the speed limit. I drive pretty slow, generally. So yeah, angry people going to work are upset because I'm just like, oh, the light turned yellow. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and stop here instead of blast through it like a maniac. So. All right, cool. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and it'll be like sort of less interviewy, but you've been in this space here a little bit. And we were talking before we hit record, and you had like some observations on just like the sort of competition level that people are going after when they're first getting started. So go ahead and sort of explain the observation. What tips do you have for people?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people message me from time to time, and I've seen other things that I've just run across for one reason or another. And it's the issue of people trying to go after keywords that they really have almost no chance to rank for, especially if they're an absolute beginner. It's just not a good way to use your time. And it's actually worse than that, because it's going to discourage you, and in some cases, it makes people feel like they want to give up. They feel like they just can't do this, when in fact it's not the case. It's just their approach is wrong. So again, my advice would be and you teach this as well, to evaluate the competition when you're evaluating a keyword. before you give it the green light, you look at this and you can use a tool. Earlier, I should have mentioned an extension like there's a Mozbar or SEO Quake that you can use in your browser, and it'll show you the stats of the competing URLs and sites. So it'll give you their relative strength. And you can see if, hey, are any sites at all that are weaker, small sites, are they able to rank at all, or are they all just really tough competitors? And that gives you a much better picture of your odds of succeeding. You should always check the competition because also you might assume that Google is treating this keyword in one way, and then it turns out it's different. Google doesn't always interpret them exactly the same way. And I have to be careful to evaluate competition plus how the keyword's being treated, because there's so many variables going on,
Sure.
You get better at it. The more you practice, the better you get. Yeah.
Gotcha. And just my observation on that is like, well, number one, the keyword golden ratio is like that's one of the reasons why I like gave out the most like helpful piece of information I could, even though I know there are like other people who are like, hey, keyword golden ratio doesn't work and it's stupid and keyword research is a waste of time. And that's bananas. Like, I mean, I know everyone has incentives to like, if you listen to the keyword research companies, they're going to tell you how important it is, or other people that are affiliates for keyword research companies or whatever. So everyone has their own incentives, but the keyword golden ratio like sort of introduces you to like some keywords that are like by definition, they're going to be like pretty low competition.
Yeah.
There is something nice about someone being like a naive starter or beginner rather. And when they're starting, they're like, hey, I'm going to go for it. And this leads me to one of my observations is people starting like the general review site. So they're trying to compete against the Wirecutter or top 10 reviews or fill in the blank. And they're trying to cover everything. And it's just, it's not going to work. Like even if you had a huge budget and you knew what you were doing and you had a team and you had, I don't know, $250,000 to invest over a couple years, like it probably would still be really hard. And in fact, I saw someone emailed me just today about, hey, my wife and I started this site and it's like, some general review site. They want to cover everything. You're going to get discouraged. Like you said, it leads you to keywords that you're never going to rank for.
Yeah.
But again, there's something cool about being so naive that you're like, hey, I'm going to compete with the Wirecutter. So have you seen some of that around there? Like
a lot of that. Yeah. I run across those kinds of sites all the time too. And I've known a few people that tried to do that and they really weren't doing very well. It's unfortunate, but I don't know where the idea came from. I think it's just the ideas that we have sometimes assumptions we make. And I mean, that's how you learn though. Most important thing is that you accept that maybe you didn't do it the right way and you can start over and figure out what you did wrong.
Yes. And I think like, the people are at least taking action, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They're doing something. And I think like I've observed, especially on YouTube, this will be broadcast on YouTube and on the podcast. And I have found that a lot of people on YouTube, they just watch a lot of YouTube. And if they're not also maybe checking out the podcast or maybe reading the blog, at least for me, my observation is there are a lot of just viewers and they're experts, right? They know more than me, but they don't take any action.
No, they don't.
Do you remember when you like first started your like first site? Like, do you remember the site and everything?
Yeah, I do. It was actually related to testosterone supplements for men, which is what it turns out was extremely freaking competitive. Holy cow. One of the keywords is like 100,000 a month. I remember that. I'll never forget that. And it didn't really look that great. And I only got one purchase before I accepted the fact that I didn't do this the right way. So it lasted like, I think 3 months maybe. And I finally said, okay, this was wrong. And I just shut it down. And then I said, I need to learn a real plan, a sensible plan. Gotcha. And know what I was doing wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like you took like you realized it and then you were like, okay, let's cut this
Yep.
off. Now, was it
Yep.
hard to make the decision like, hey, this is a sunk cost and I have to make a
Yeah.
decision from this point?
It was because I did put in time and effort and even made my own little logo and the color scheme and all that. And I fixed up. I got used to using WordPress and screwing around with the line spacing that drove me crazy, and finally got stuff figured out. But it is, it's sad, but you, I think your priorities determine how you behave, is my belief. And I would rather be successful than hang on to something that's not going to work. And I'm willing to accept that I made a mistake. If you have that approach, then there's nothing you can't do.
Yeah. And I think what you just highlighted something like awesome here. All the couple throwaway lines right there, but like the site didn't work out, but you learned WordPress. You probably learned some keyword research stuff. You learned, it sounds like some CSS. You were trying to mess around with
that's
spacing.
right.
So you learned all these like micro skills that you're like using now, right? And then you also learned about things that don't matter, like the color scheme, although you may disagree with me, but like the color scheme, a couple of those other details don't really, like those aren't going to make the sale. They can help support everything else that you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's like, you got to get the right person on your site, nurture them over to Amazon or wherever you're trying to sell the thing. So
exactly.
Cool. Well, I just kicked the dust there. Sorry about that. So we are finishing up here, but before we go, I'm going to mention a couple things before I send it over to you, Marty. We're going to be doing a couple more interviews and discussions because Marty has some awesome things to share. He wrote a few blog posts over at Niche Site Project. So be sure to keep an eye out for these other interviews. We're going to talk about informational posts, and we're also going to talk about what's the other one, Marty?
Optimizing for SEO. Cool. Yeah, secondary keywords.
Secondary keywords. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Marty, do you have any parting words for people that are aspiring to be in your shoes?
Yeah, I absolutely. Just learn from the people who actually have achieved success, because they know what they're talking about, because they earned it. There's a lot of noise out there. You just need to focus on learning, listening to podcasts in your free time, read articles, and learn to pick up things that actually are practical, actionable things you can use to improve. And focus on trying to write a good post. It doesn't have to be perfect, but actually put in effort. Don't half-ass it. That seems to be a very common problem. People don't really try that hard. And, just keep learning. Don't give up. If you have a bad day, it's inevitable. I'll learn stuff that's going to happen. It's just human nature. Don't give up. If you need to take a break a couple hours or till the next day, that's cool. And take notes, keep track of your stuff, and try to think outside the box for keywords. I take notes everywhere I go, either with my cell phone camera, or you can write it down. Restaurant, stores, I see stuff all the time. It might work out. Some of it has. It's led to keywords I never thought of before. Some of it won't work. That's cool. You never know what you run across. But you start thinking like in terms of opportunity. That's really helped me a lot too. I think that's the entrepreneurial mindset.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Marty. I know you keep kind of a low profile. Should people just find you on the Niche Site Project blog? Is that the right place?
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Yeah. If it's someone who is trying to earn their own way and is putting in the effort but has a question, I'd be happy to answer them. They can find me on Facebook too if they really need to.
All right. Cool, Marty. I know you're a great mentor. You've helped a lot of folks in the community, and I appreciate all of that support that you offer. So, we'll talk to you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again to Marty. Again, I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy dude, so I like talking shop and hearing your story, man. So thank you. I also want to point out for people that are new to the Doug Show, welcome. I really appreciate you tuning in. You should check out some of the other episodes, particularly the ones where Marty was sharing a story earlier on. So it's kind of cool to see how someone progresses on a timeline over the course of, over a year. I'm not I can't even remember the first time that I interviewed Marty, but it's been a while, right? It's been a while. So it's cool to see the trajectory, and hopefully you could sort of like imagine yourself like progressing and growing and learning, and just you can sort of hear the difference in like the confidence level about execution and that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. The other thing I want to mention is I'm doing this cool age site case study. So if you are a fan of the podcast, I appreciate your support, of course, but you probably already know about the age site case study. Essentially, this is a case study where I bought a site that was aged, right? So it was aged about a year, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was out of the Google sandbox. It was already getting traffic when I purchased it. And then I have been outsourcing most of the activity. So I hired a company to do the keyword research. I hired the company to do the content. I hired another company to improve existing content. I hired 2 companies to do link building via guest posting, and it's been going well. So if you want to like get a peek behind the curtain on what it might look like if you buy a site, if you are, short on time, but you have a budget, perhaps you have like my old gig, you have like an old or my old gig is not an old job, but it was IT project management. If you're in IT, a lot of times you end up listening to like my show over some other different shows. Maybe you listen to them all, but I find that, this is how like blogs and different, audiences sort of group together. It's sort of strange. I talk about my stuff, and then I end up attracting people who are similar to me or have a similar background and stuff. So there's a good chance, like a large part of the audience, you particularly sitting there listening to me, maybe sitting in your car, you're probably in IT somehow or related to it, or you work with other people who are in IT. So the point is, you may be short on time because you have a demanding job that is challenging and you don't have too much time, but you kind of want to get out of the rat race. This case study might be for you. So do check it out. And even if you don't have the same budget that I'm working with, or you have a different timeline, or you have different interests or whatever, maybe you want to do something a little bit different, you can get a pretty good idea about how you might want to execute these different pieces of the puzzle. And hopefully you'll learn like the right order to do things and the information you need to provide to different vendors. It's pretty easy to find companies who will do work for you, but it's sometimes challenging to work with them directly. Sometimes you need to provide them with like a template or more information. And those are things you could probably learn from the case study. So check it out at nichesiteproject.com/ASCS for age site case study. And if you dig the podcast, which I hope you do, you can find several episodes, and I will be adding, more episodes over time as I'm doing more work on the case study. So I will leave it at that. Everybody have a great day out there. Look out for some of the other episodes from Marty. Check out some of the other episodes in general. And if you really liked it, share it with a friend. Tell a friend, tell a family member, maybe an enemy, maybe an acquaintance. It doesn't really matter. Just tell someone about the show, and that helps spread the word, like in a literal way. You're spreading the word for the Doug Show, and I definitely appreciate it. Thanks, and have a great day.